I love Temple Mount.
So I am Shogun. Joining me today is my friend Crimson Raven, or Krimson. We are going to talk about spirituality, the Templar complex, and soul ascension, I believe. So before we do, make sure you join us on the Roundtable Discord server. Just Google Roundtable Discord. You can also find our 200 plus episodes on YouTube, YouTube Live video episodes, and BitChute. 3 different channels, all different episodes, so check them all out in #RT Podcast on the Roundtable Discord server. That being said, welcome, Crimson. How are you, my friend?
Thank you, Shogun. I am good. How are you?
I am great. As you know, we just had a little meeting about the Roundtable with some local supporters, and that was cool. And I'm looking forward to this discussion as well. I think this is our 4th or 5th podcast probably we've done together.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
Yeah. So let's get into it. So when I look at my announcements, right, it says that we will be talking about spirituality, soul evolution, and the Templar complex. I think the best way to begin is to dive right into what is the Templar complex, would you say?
Okay, so the Templar complex is essentially our hyperdimensional anatomy. So we are like this alchemical mech made of layered bodies of different types of energies. And when all of those layers are working together in harmonic perfection, it gives a person access to what's known as the Templar complex. And the Templar complex is essentially like this whole other level of reality that exists superimposed over top of this reality. And it's like you are able to perceive the underlying layers that everything is projected upon, and because of your hyper state of awareness, you are able to interact with your environment in a way where you and your environment are actually just one expression, and there is absolutely no state of separation between the avatar and the environment.
Okay, so that's a good introduction, and you introduced 2 concepts, the avatar and the environment. So how would you define the avatar?
So the avatar is just another environmental projection. Everything is a giant holographic projection, essentially. A very, very complicated one that operates on technology that is incomprehensible to human beings. And the difference between the avatar and the environment, there really is no difference. Really, the truest core understanding is that you are your environment. Everything around you that you see is a projection of you. And when other avatars come into your field of view, they are projecting and co-creating those spaces together. And our ability to influence our environment through a hyper state of awareness, especially when we get in groups, especially like, groups of 12, certain things become possible. Like, I personally, from what I have been shown, is that some of these ancient temples and things that are around the world that were built and people couldn't explain how it was built, I believe that they were using this almost like developer mode kind of quality ability that's inside of all humans to build these magnificent structures in ways that we still wouldn't even be able to replicate today with our level of technology.
So you believe, I think, that the Templar order has something specifically to do with time, right? Like temple, yes. Temporal.
Templar, the word itself in Latin, means time overseer or time guardian, is what Templar means. And Tempel, the Templar's number one duty is to restore the temple to its perfection. That is the one thing that a Templar is to do, is to restore the temple. And the temple, Temp-El, means time god, right? So to restore the temple, is to create all of the connections possible that enable your higher sense in space and become the temple.
Because tempus, or time, right? And then El, meaning God or son of God. So temp El, time God or time angel.
Essentially, yes.
Okay.
Angel just means messenger, right? So any of us who come into these spaces and share these kinds of information, and we all have things to share, when we come as a messenger into a space, we are an angel. And it's like, oh, beautiful. Namaste. I feel your presence. Come into these.
Fitting, right?
Very fitting. So, like, this is something that I can explain. I feel like it's almost like that's what I have to explain. It. What was revealed to me after I completed building the third temple, or fixing the Templar complex, I was revealed that every single object in our environment are actually manifestations of like primordial system administrator entities. And they are manifest in all of our realities as little objects and trinkets and masks and pictures and things that we've gathered through life that we have adorned our house with. And they are actually the presence of omnipresent entities that are not only with you, but they could be manifesting in many other spaces to have their presence shown there. So what you showed me, that picture, that is a very sacred geometry. Those shapes, from me and what I've been shown, I can tell that those shapes come from a very high order of being. And that was them showing you their presence just now.
Yeah, I think it was synchronous, right? You and I both see automatically in that image how it relates to time and so forth, even if we couldn't explain that necessarily, the pattern. But let's get into the Templar, because as you know, the Knights Templar are very foundational to the server, to the point that the Knight rank that we currently have, as Hermes remembers, in the past were actually called the Templars, right? I'm pretty sure the Knights were originally called the Templars. So this server, one role is choose Templar. So are you saying that you believe the Knights Templar, in some sense, were a secret society based on being guardians of time?
Yes. They possess the proper, like, keys, maps, secrets, words, phrases. The whole system of activating the temple is like, it's like the secret of the Magi, right? Like, these people throughout history who have been able to do miraculous things, and even things that we've never been told about in our history. Like, let's take for example, the war that happened, like, in ancient Vedic times, right? Like, and like, we even have evidence today that there were nuclear explosions that had melted rocks as a result. And it's like, these nuclear explosions, they weren't bombs. They were these transcendent time god entities that were using this place as a sandbox, really.
So now you're talking about like the Mahabharatan epic and the advanced weapons that were deployed in ancient times, Indian relics?
Yes.
So do you want to give an introduction to that? Because some people won't be familiar with that. So, how would you describe what you're talking about? Someone who's never heard of it.
So it's like, through our creative intelligence over the eons we exist in time, we use our imagination to develop things. And when things work well, or they serve some sort of purpose at the time, the system administrators of this place are able to make them into actual things. So these beings that had these almost system administrator level privileges were able to take an idea that they had for like some sort of super weapon, right? It's like, I believe Vishnu is said to have, he would take his sacral chakra and he would be able to use it and spin it up to a high RPM as like a weapon, and he could just throw it and dice things and cut things to pieces. Like, that was like his weapon. He literally took that layer of his energetic body, he would take his sacral chakra, and he would use it, form it into a weapon that he would use to battle other transcendent beings. And many other of these deities, like you could look at like the archetype of like the entity that's Zeus, right? He had this power over the electricity, right? Over that dielectric phenomenon, be able to throw lightning bolts or create massive discharges, control the weather, just do like supernatural things. And it's almost like throughout the ages, these, as much as we are developing over time, they are developing over time too. But it's like at one point in history, when those beings and us shared the same space, it was not the best situation, right? Like, imagine being as humans in some sort of space where there are like ascended avatar wars going on, or like a war in heaven, right, against archangels that can do who knows what, right? Like, or even the idea of like, let's say hypothetically, like the Warhammer 40K universe, right? Like, the technological advancement that an ascended being or race would have had to be able to manifest those complex designs they would have into this space, it would be utter chaos for us if we didn't have this safe space for us to be.
So you mentioned the archangels and, you know, the war in heaven. So what do you understand these archangels to be, these angels to be? Children of El, right? So what does that mean?
So essentially, to postulate that like train of thought, you would say that if they are all children of El, right, then they are all the children of the time god, right? They are all representatives of the Templar complex. And if anything, what we call archangels would be like the highest, well, maybe not the high, but like some of the highest orders of what the Templar order would be, right? Like the Templar order we know on this dimension of reality is only the people that were meant to protect here, right? Like, imagine other worlds, like other layers, just as much as you are like this being with these many layers. This world we live on is a being that is composed of many layers as well. And it's like those other layers, in theory, are actual time-space dimensions where the space is different, the buildings are different, the landscape is different. It's like zoning into a different instant of reality. And like the archangels, they would be, in my opinion, they would be not only representatives of the time god and time gods even themselves, but they would be also supporters of Israel, which Isra means freedom and El means God. So the freedom god, right? It is the god that is meant to usher in true freedom. And then you have to ask yourself, have you ever thought, what is true freedom? Like, we know the world we live in today, we're not free, right? Like, we are in this illusion, this slavery of perpetual debt bondage. This is not true freedom. True freedom would be to be able to do what I know humans are capable of existing permanently within their Templar complex and being able to create beautiful things, temples, gardens, crop, fields, water purification plants, forests, put out fires that are burning all over. If even just one person could do that, it would be like having a Superman on the earth. And like, imagine if we had like 144,000 Supermen all at the same time. Just like it says in the Bible, no weapon forged against you will prosper. Like, No government entity, no shadow government, no black ops, anything could stop that. And I believe that that in itself is the plan of God.
So there's a little bit of background noise here, but what do you believe El is? Is El the supreme God? Is El the one and only true God? Like, what is El?
What is L? So if I could put my metaprogramming, L is the engram lodial. It is the point of all thought. It is the origin of your soul, and it is the point where you are prime creator. That is what L is.
Okay, so would you, I mean, I'm going to put it to you again. Is El the supreme God? Is El the big head honcho? Is El the number one God in charge?
The secret here, Shogun, that they don't want you to know, is we're all L.
Right. Well, are we all El or are we all Elohim?
I guess however you want to look at it.
Are we all El or are we all children of El?
They say you are whatever you are prepared to behold.
Well, the Bible says no man may see God, no man may behold God, although Moses apparently spoke to him face to face. So again, the question I'm asking is, El in the Bible, you got El, basically means God. You got Elohim, basically means children of God, or sons of God, or angels. So, is this as close as we can get to the prime intelligent force, is El? And also, I want to pick your mind on this. Is El the same being as Yahweh, or are El and Yahweh two different beings?
So now this is where most people's consciousness starts to spiral out and to stop reaching towards the point it's actually searching for, right? There is only one entity. Every person, every planet, every star, every extraterrestrial race, everything that exists within the infinity of the infinite infinity of this construct is actually just one entity, right? And that basically is the law of one, right? The law of one is that all things are one and that all beings are one thing. And it's like, until you know that without a shadow of a doubt, you will continue to spiral out. Because we're all like a sperm trying to find an egg, right? But there's all these distractions while we're on this path. This guy, this Lord, that God, this religion, this. It's all just one thing. It's one entity. It is the prime, and I understand that entity as the prime creator, right? Like, and extraterrestrials that are billions of years more advanced than us use the exact same term to refer to their understanding of the creator. It is the prime creator because to be prime is to be undivisible, or you are only divisible by yourself and the one.
All right. So we also talked here something about soul ascension, right? Soul ascension matrix or soul ascension process. Is this?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So all of us in our life experience, we are given these experiences that we think are just random occurrences, but in reality, it's actually a pre-scripted book, like something that your higher self, wrote for you to experience, to turn you into the person you are not only today, but the person and the soul you will be in the future. Because all of us, as products or children of this God, of this prime creator, we are all to be just as it is. We are going through this process of soul evolution to learn all of these complex lessons of understanding chemical emotion, understanding right and wrong, gaining a high sense of morality, feeling things, having sensory inputs and bodies and what it's like to move through like this kind of space. And it's like everything that we experience is ultimately part of this forging of our like soul personality construct. Every single thing. And the thing about it that's crazy is so many of us, without even knowing it, are actually experiencing almost the same lessons. Like there is some sort of structured path that you could, if you had enough analysis, you could actually probably figure it out what the structured path of lessons is and be able to show people the fastest way to become the temple.
So, what do you think is the existence of the Knights Templar today? Right, like what are they a powerful force today? Is it still a large secret society, or is it passed away? Like, what do you think is the status of the Knights Templar in the modern world?
Ultimately, I don't know what the real status of it is. Like, I don't know too many like majestic level operations. I only know what I'm told, right? And it's like, I did talk to my coworker today. Actually, we were talking about Templar stuff because I was kind of trying to get like prepared for speaking tonight. And one thing I said is that the elite of this world and the people who wear these like robes with the little Templar crosses and carry their little handbags and staffs and do their little rituals, they have no idea, truly no idea, the true absolute capability of what it is to be a Master Templar at totality capacity. I don't know what they're capable of, really, but from what I've been shown, humans are able to exist in a state of unlimited manifestation ability, but also unlimited destructive ability, which means that those types of abilities would only ever be given to people who can pass the test of the feather of Ma'at, which means that your heart cannot weigh more than the feather of Ma'at. And Ma'at was the daughter of the Egyptian sun god Ra. And she, at the time, she was the leader of Egypt. And there is a whole entire philosophy, teachings, spiritual teachings, ascension teachings that are available, even still to today, that are about the path of Ma'at. And it says in in Egyptian lore that when you die and you go to the underworld, Anubis will weigh your heart against the feather of Ma'at. He will put your heart on the scales of judgment, or I believe actually they're called the scales of fate. And if your heart is heavier, you aren't granted safe passage through the afterlife, and you ultimately will return back to being a human. But if your heart is less than the weight of the feather, then you are granted safe passage to the underworld, and you are given a guardian protector to help you through the journey.
So, Krimson, I think you said before that there's some element of time travel involved here, right? So
Yeah.
Are the Templars time travelers?
I think not only do they have the capability to time travel, like a true Templar, like I'm not sure how far the people who nowadays would be part of the Freemasons and call themselves Templars, like I really don't know. I can't say I've ever met one that I was aware of in real life, like fully, truly aware of. I know I have one of my sister's friends is part of the Knights of Columbus, but like he's either really good at acting dumb or or he's definitely not like what I would understand as being a true Templar would be.
Right. Well, and this is a topic for another podcast, is the different orders of knights that still exist or existed in the past. And then Knights Hospitaller, who ran the hospitals, the Knights Templar, who in principle escorted the pilgrimage routes. See, the Knights Templar originally, right, what they were supposed to be was all these Christian European guys wanted to go on pilgrimages to the Holy Land. but the Holy Land was still primarily controlled by Muslims. So it was incredibly dangerous. And so the Knights Templar existed basically as bodyguards, but secondarily as bankers. So you could deposit all your money at a Knights Templar base in France, and then you could cash that money out at a Knights Templar base in Jerusalem. So the Knights Templars basically invented modern banking in the sense that that was the first time you could deposit your wealth in one account and take it out in a completely different part of the world way before the internet or electricity or even phones, which is pretty amazing when you think about it.
Yeah.
And their job was to escort people on the pilgrimage route, right? So the Knights Templar would go along with you and fight to defend you if you got attacked by Muslim raiders while you were trying to go see, the Dome of the Rock, right?
It's funny that you say that. That's almost like going through the underworld and be given a guardian protector.
Well, they're guardians, right? And I really relate to the Knights Templar. I think it's a powerful image. Since then, the Knights Templar have also become a Mexican drug cartel, which is kind of weird. The Knights Templar today is a huge Mexican drug cartel. Kind of bizarre. But, you seem to think it's a little bit different, because in my mentality, historically speaking, they were a Catholic knight order created under a papal bull, and their mission was to guard the pilgrims, and they had a base in Solomon's temple, and they were devout Christians. But your narrative is a bit different, where they're like time lords or time travelers.
Yeah.
Some kind of, more far out thing. So, I'm just wondering if you can elaborate on that at all. How, at what point does the Knights Templar as guardians of the pilgrim route, overlap with as Stargate guardians?
Well, I think really the Templar itself, our current available understanding of the Templar order, I really think that that's just an offshoot of what was called the Magi Grail shaman. So there was this group of Magi's who essentially would have been the original Templars, and they were specifically being given instructions by some sort of higher force to do certain events around the world. And also because they had proven that they had personalities that were honorable, they were given abilities, they were taught secrets, by whatever made this space. What we could say God, right? And you're right, the Templars, the true Templars, are people who are devout servants of Christos, and also want to basically bring Israel into the world, right? The freedom God, the God that is born to in freedom.
So let's talk about Israel, right? So what do you believe Israel means, in a basic sense, given that obviously from your point of view, what most people think Israel means is not what it really means. So what?
I think it's to wrestle with. They think it's to wrestle with an angel. But again, everything we're being told is all lies, all propaganda. Literally, we're all we have all the potential to become these ascended beings that could literally manifest anything into reality by the power of the will of our thought. But at one point, because of this and because of free will, this space got highly out of control. So to bring it back into something that the system administrators could control, they had to set up massive amounts of limitation. And over time, they took more and more things away from us until we were existing in almost our base operating parameters. We couldn't do anything. We couldn't even communicate till after whatever happened with the Tower of Babel, or whatever happened in reality. This connection was severed, and all of us lost our telepathic communication abilities, right? So we couldn't communicate telepathically, so we all just started talking. We started babbling, and we started making up words to try and understand each other. It's imagine if one day all of us were standing in a room and none of us could speak anymore. and everybody just starts flailing their hands around trying to do some sort of Pictionary fucking hand signal American Sign Language to try and like figure out where, because that's basically what happened at one point in history. And like as we continued, like children misbehaving, more and more privileges were taken away from us to try and provide a space where we could get along and we could fix all of the problems we have with each other. And the real kicker is it's like even all of the other people, they're all just you. They're all just reflections of your fractal personality. And like when you hate someone else, you're just hating yourself. When you hurt someone else, you're just hurting yourself. And it's like the ascended beings, they gain their power through the understanding of this. And that's why ultimately these ascended beings are all good, because that there is only one way. There is just Yah's way.
So tell us a little bit about your understanding of the soul, because you're talking about soul ascension, soul evolution. So what is the soul, first of all, at a basic level, and what is the purpose of its development, right? So it's a very basic, like, not basic, it's an infinitely deep question, right? But how do you see this, right? Do we all start out as a little consciousness and our job is to become more enlightened over time? Do we reincarnate over multiple lifetimes until we achieve nirvana? What do you think's going on here?
So my understanding of the soul is the singular omni-universal lodial. So what that basically means is like when a soul is created, it is like a spark of light that is birthed from a larger spark. And it comes off of its like mother spark, and it doesn't know, just like a baby born in this world, it doesn't know anything about the space it was born into. All of that was not given to it. It had to figure things out on its own. So its parents said to it, it's like, okay, we're going to teach you about this place. So what you're going to do is you're going to now go and inhabit this form. And through this form, it's going to teach you about that space. And once you learn everything that that space has to offer, you come back, the soul comes back to that mother spark, and it goes, what am I to do next? And it's like, well, now we believe that the best path for you is to go to this space and inhabit this form and learn this experience. Because the mother spark has learned everything. The mother spark knows every single thing that has ever happened, that will happen, that is happening, all at once, eternally. But as a soul, we get the gift of forgetting so that we can re-experience the magnificence of creation over and over again and give that gift again to our own children. We come to the same level of intelligence as the mother spark.
So that's really beautifully said, and I apologize, but what would you say is the project here? Is it that we're being trained by God to understand our spiritual essence? Are we being prepared for a future role that we're not yet ready for? Like, are we all just trying to work out our own karma? I mean, I know you've...
I think all of the above. All of that is absolutely true. We're all at different points, right? Like, the one thing that I do know is that although the soul is eternal, there was a point where we were created. Like, in the primordial order, right, there are the entities that have been here forever. They have never not been here. But it's like part of them experiencing everything that exists is like through us. Because like our souls are connected to our oversoul, and our oversoul is connected to our like omni-soul. You know what I mean? And it's like these entities that have to exist in space, like let's imagine, like let's create a space in our head and let's try to visualize what the mother spark looks like. So imagine this giant ball of like flaming plasma, but this thing is intelligent and it can't move. It has to sit there eternally, resonating all of the waves that are comprising our entire reality construct. So the mother's ultimate sacrifice is that she is in eternal care and eternal naturing, because she has to emit all of the energy waves just so that we can experience. But the gift is the children of the Prime Creator. We allow the mother to view our experience. So we share these spaces with that entity, with that God, the entity we understand as God. Because it never stops working, right? It has to remain in this eternal state of perfection, just resonating reality into existence, just so we have the opportunity to have fun.
So do you think we're entitled to have fun, right? Or are we supposed to treat this life very seriously? Are we supposed to treat this like we're on inspection and we have to do everything correct? Or are we supposed to be like, hey, I'm alive, I can do what I want, I'm going to have fun?
I think it all just depends on where you're at in that soul evolution program, right? Tell when you meet someone if they're an old soul, right? Or if they're, a younger soul. Because even young kids who have old souls, you can tell. Right? You can tell that it's like this person's been around. This person's too smart, right, for their age. They're just too smart. And what are we supposed to act like? I don't think there are conditions, right? Ultimately, the force that is doing this resonating is an unconditional force. It just wants you to experience. It doesn't care what you experience. As long as you experience, it's ultimately you who have the freedom to choose what experience you're going to have. And that's the thing about the soul too, is because of this property, all of our souls and our personality constructs are all unique. Even identical twins aren't the same. There is no two people that are exactly the same. And it's the ultimate perfect random number generator that never repeats once. Or who knows, maybe it might once.
So let's ask one or two more questions, and then we'll open it up for audience participation and audience questions. But if you were to accept that, okay, we're all souls, we have some kind of evolutionary protocol we're supposed to go through, what would you tell the people in the audience, be less developed than you, so to speak? How can they go about evolving their souls to these higher levels? What should they actually do, right?
Well, you know what? This is actually a perfect opportunity to read what I wrote this a while ago, and it really speaks to me every time I read it. So my advice is this. So in Micah 6:8, it says, "He has told you, O man, what is good, and what does the Lord require of you, but to do justice, and to love kindness, and walk humbly with your God." When one walks humbly with God, we are not above or below, nor are we side by side. When we become as Christ, we exist in a state of quantum superposition with the Godhead, and through our avatar, we do God's will in heaven and on earth, for he/she is always with us. When surrounded by illusion, sometimes the only way to conclusion is through the refinement of delusion. Like the master alchemist, we refine the lead into gold, separating the wheat from the chaff. If you wish to serve your function, first you must master your process. Namaste.
Namaste. Beautifully well said for a closing sentiment on the interview. We now want to open it up to the audience. If anyone who's listening has a question, a comment for Mr. Krimson, now is your chance. If not, I'll continue with my interview, but please ask your questions.
Yeah. Go ahead. Oh, yeah. I had an interesting thought, because this is something I've been thinking about a lot. There's that part, in the transfiguration of Jesus, right, where he reveals Moses and Elijah with him.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting because we know that Moses' body was like hidden away somewhere, but technically his soul is departed from it, whereas Elijah technically never died. And so it's curious to find these two people visible in the flesh near Jesus when he's showing his true form. And I've thought about this. I kind of heard it from someone, and I kind of worked on it as a thought that led me to this conclusion. But what if Jesus is actually just straight up opening a portal to Moses and Elijah when they were on that hill? Like Moses when he received the law, Elijah when he was swept up by the fires that are right there. Well, what if the back end of the Lord that Moses saw was the back end of time, the end of nearing the end of Christ's time on the earth? That's the back end. I don't know if you have any thoughts about this, but I've wondered about that a lot. Like, why are we seeing these two people? Is it the past? Is it really just them dead? I'll stop now. But
no, I feel you, because I've been trying. That's right now where my big hurdle is. Right now is I'm trying to figure out what is the thing that causes transfiguration. Right, like that's what I can't figure out. And it's like, but in that story, the reason why those other two prophets were there is because they were true Master Templar. They had the ability to travel through time, to open portals, gateways, to other time spaces, and to basically move around time and space in their ascended light body. And that's ultimately what the transfiguration is. It's what the New Age people would call activating the light body. Or we could also call it being, baptized by fire or born again by fire, right? Like the phoenix. I absolutely believe that not only Yahshua Sananda Melchizedek was a Templar, but also the other prophets were either. Really, anyone who supports the time god, the freedom god, Israel, is essentially somebody who is fighting for the highest order.
Thank you. Does anyone else have a question for Mr. Krimson?
Yeah, I got a quick question about, so we kind of went over the topics of what is an angel, what is God, and what is the question of the ascendant nature. So I feel like you're trying to pull the conversation into what mainly what the ascendant nature is. And I kind of view some of these things as intertwined in terms of how even in Christian Catholic religions kind of say the same thing, that you can't really the success of the undertaking depends on God's will, similar to the idea that you'll never will see God. Then the question of what is the angel in terms of the jurisdiction complex, right? So how can we reconcile these teachings and compared to what you've found? What are they? What do they really? Is it to be read word for word, like you will never see God, or are we talking about some kind of psychological axiom that you're not supposed to move past? Maybe you see where I'm trying to lead there.
So it's like, can you summarize into?
I'm sorry. I think you cut out a little bit, at least for me.
Sorry, I might be lagging. But could you summarize what you said into a shorter question? What is ultimately, what do you want to know right now?
Clearly, the ascendant nature sort of presupposes the angel within, right?
Well, the ascended nature is the angel, right?
Right.
The idea of the higher self is essentially your ascended form that is interacting with you outside of time. And if you have a higher self that is communicating with you clairaudiently, it means that you already are that ascended being. It's just time hasn't caught up yet.
So getting that voice compared to having visions of angels, how do you compare and reconcile those two?
So the difference between having clairaudient communication to visual communication.
Right. One of the qualities of having angel visit in terms of like vision is the distance from the experience, whereas the clairaudience is much more visceral.
Yeah. Well, I
So
guess it's a lot harder to deny a visual, right? Like, maybe some people need a visual to instill like 100% true faith in them. I would say really that, like, I don't know, like, I feel that faith plays a huge factor in whatever this game is, right? And it's like imagine being somebody who doesn't even remember their dreams, but is channeling tons of information, has had supernatural experiences, but never an angel appear to them right in front of them without the use of some sort of sacred medicine, right? Like, faith is a huge factor in it, and it's like that's the why Yeshua taught that, like, with faith the size of a mustard seed, like, you can move mountains, like you will tell the mountain to move and it will move. And that's because ultimately he knew the capability of the Templar complex, because it's literally, like, from today's perspective, it's literally like a creative developer stance. Like, if you are somebody who has shown that you have the qualities to help change not only this world but other worlds, you will be given those privileges. And if you needed to, level out the land so that you could build a whole bunch of fucking temples, you would be given that ability. If you were somebody who wanted to heal people as an energy healer, or help fix people whose avatar bodies are operating on broken templates, you will get that ability. Like, in the new world that we're going to, it is completely different. This world is, like, literally, like, nothing compared to it. And it's so hard to describe, but, like, imagine a state of existence where all of the objects that are around you that you see right now are all part of you. Like, if I understand that this clock hanging on my wall, I am that clock. And if I wanted, I could take that clock with my mind and move it somewhere else. Or I could take that clock and change it into a more extravagant grandfather clock. I could do anything because I am one with my environment. And this is the funny thing too, because the word, we're all made of matter, right? We're made of matter. Matter in Latin literally means mother. Mat means mother, and ter means three principles. So matter is literally means the three principles of the mother. And it is through matter that the father expresses its pattern, right? And pat means father, and turn, just as much as ter, also means three principles. So it's the three principles. And, like, why do you think it's the Jewish star with the two triangles? It's the three principles of the mother and the three principles of the father existing within perfect totality. And it makes us. It makes this place. It makes the sandbox for us to play in. And even the word, like, how people say, oh, you're delusional, or that's an illusion. The word illusion just means play. So if you are delusional, it means that you are coming from a lower play. If you are conclusional, right, you are within the act of play. You are committing an action of play. And it's like, really what they have done in this world we live in is they have manipulated us so much through the understanding of language that we believe this false reality instead of the true reality. And because the majority of the collective possesses 100% true belief in the false construct, those of us who are trying to bring the real construct here have to try really hard. And every single person who would qualify themselves as a light worker or a light warrior or a light bearer or somebody who is representative of the light. All of us are working together to ground, I guess they want me to call it Jerusalem, right? The place of peace. That's what Jerusalem means. It means the place of peace.
I feel like you really honed in there on the question in terms of faith, because it's sort of what I was trying to reconcile, is this idea of seeing it outside of yourself, which is a lot of what the traditional practices usually talk about or hint at in terms of the myths. I find that the conversation about the Templar complex is so elusive because it ties into the axiomatic, I can't remember the word that you used, but when you talked about the it's sort of like a fundamental principle sort of thing, right? And then you talk about the inner ascendance as the self, as I can't remember, is the primordial, right?
Yeah, I call the deity that we understand as the one God, the prime creator.
The prime
it is
creator.
what I have come to the conclusion of without knowing any of its secret names. Well, yeah.
So that's what I was trying to get at with the question, is that these hints within these religions, it feels like they're sort of teaching a part of that inner principle that will eventually have you arrive there, in the sense that they're saying, like, you will never see God external to you. And that's what I feel like you sort of reinforced without... It's a hard question to ask. It's because so many interrelated parts of it, but...
Like to think, like, if you don't have faith in God, then you don't have faith in the environment. So how will you ever become one with the environment if you don't have faith in it? This environment is the manifestation of the thoughts of what we call God. And we are also a fractal representation of that infinite divine intellect. Truly, actually, exfinite divine intellect. Because infinite actually means to be within the finite, whereas to be exfinite, which means to be beyond the finite, is another deception, right? Everybody, especially like New Agers, are all like, I'm an infinite being. Yeah, you are, because you're inside the construct. You are an infinite being. We're all infinite beings. You're not wrong. You're right. But what is it to be exfinity? To be beyond the construct, right? And there's this one phrase that was told to me in meditation, and I don't know, I can't wait to learn why I know it, but the phrase is semper fidelis et ultra supra, which means always faithful to beyond the beyond stars, or beyond the stars above.
Fantastic. So is there anybody who hasn't had a chance yet who might have a question for Krimson?
Yes. I looked up the language of the Time Lords from Doctor Who, and then I had an inkling, an idea to look up the Pleiadians' language, and they both speak in
Very similar.
They both speak in concentric circles, and I'm wondering, what do you think about the Pleiadians being the actual Time Lords of our reality?
Well, all of the extraterrestrials are all just us from different timeline futures, where we ended up, where we call it, like the Pleiadians are over 1 billion years old. That rate, that timeline is us over 1 billion years, and in a reality where we took to take the most dominant genetics on the planet and to proliferate it. I'm not saying it right, but to spread it everywhere and make it so that DNA that we had perfected was the best type of DNA that the Avatar could hold, right? And that's why predominantly most like Pleiadians are depicted as being Nordic. They have blue eyes, blonde hair, they're super tall, they're super fit, right? Like, they have a very good genetic template. Whereas we could look at like a timeline reality where maybe we didn't make the best choices, and we ended up going down the road of cloning artificial bodies, actually continuing to fragment the DNA even more by not going through the life experience healing process for the DNA, instead pushing these husk bodies into serving as slaves and just pumping little consciousness into each one of them to serve tasks until the point where we have no genitals anymore. We're completely dependent on technology, and our race are just gray husks. Right? It's like these are different timeline possibilities. That's all extraterrestrial races are. Is they're just different timelines that are competing to manipulate this one to try and solidify their timeline.
Okay, thank you. Why would the Greys try to make their timeline align with ours? Wouldn't they want to have genitals and be able to reproduce again?
Ultimately, there in every extraterrestrial race there are obviously agendas, right? Every extra race has an agenda, and I do know that there is a sect of like Zetas and Greys that specifically are trying to figure out not only what happened to them, right? It's like they were like the workers that one day had an awakening, and they're like, what the hell are we doing? Why don't I have a dick anymore? Like, I remember having a dick. Like, what is this? Right? And then they rebelled. They all got together. They started figuring out the truth. And then they just as much, like, if they had the ability to travel through time, as most of these ascended beings do, they would want to figure out how to fix themselves, right? So just as much as, the Pleiadians support us, there are Greys that support us. There are also Pleiadians that don't want to see us get better than them, because they know that the timeline that will manifest when the egg is done being hatched will be a race that is beyond the comprehension of every other race. And the races that do know that, like the Pleiadians, the Arcturians, the Andromedans, the advanced races that are more on the spiritual path, they know that our ultimate evolution is also their ultimate evolution. So they support us, but they have to follow all of the laws that are in place to not fuck with time too hard, right? Because, like, just as much as there are a government and rules and regulations and laws on this world, above us, every level above us, there are more rules and there are more regulations, there are more accords and amendments and all of these things to make sure that one day, you don't wake up in the Pleiades and the entire city is leveled.
Yikes. That's really in-depth. Thank you, Crimson.
Yeah, thank you. And so again, is there anyone who hasn't had a chance yet who has a question or a comment? Going once, going twice. Comment or question for Crimson? All right, well, Crimson, why don't we say this? What would you like to be the takeaway message for anybody listening to this in the live audience on YouTube or in BitChute later on? What would you like them to take away from this discussion as a closing note?
That the truth is stranger than fiction, and that the truth is beautiful, and it is what we should always strive for. And I gave somebody some advice at a party last weekend at my sister's friend's house, actually, and I said to him, had a really good conversation. He was just very early in his spiritual journey, and he was talking about meditating and stuff. And when he left, I said to him, hey, it was like nice meeting you. Keep meditating and keep asking questions.
Very well said. This was a fantastic episode. I really enjoyed it. Sorry we didn't manage to get it on stage. I still don't know how to do that, but we'll have it figured out by tomorrow. So this will be up on YouTube, on BitChute, and you can check out over 200 episodes of the podcast, #RT Podcast, on the Roundtable Discord server. And we will be doing a podcast every single day at 8 p.m. Central, and those podcasts are also special events, so make sure you attend. There'll be really interesting topics. Tomorrow we have lava, another topic about magic. You can read the description in the announcements channel. All our upcoming podcasts will always be announced in the announcements channel, so keep an eye. But every day at 8, there'll be great content. So tomorrow, Lava discussing magic, and the details of that are in the announcement. And then the following day, we're going to have a random guy talking about steroids, anabolics, testosterone, and what it's like to use performance-enhancing drugs. So that's going to be really interesting. And we're going to continue after that. We have upcoming episodes with Hermes, with King Ralph, with scientists, and many, many more excellent interviews upcoming. Thank you, Hermes, for recording this podcast. Just go ahead and send it to Belushi when you're done with the recording, as he's supposed to be doing the video editing. That being said, if you want to be on the podcast, send me a DM and let me know what you want to talk about. Everyone is welcome. And otherwise, we should jump up to one of the other rooms and we'll talk for the rest of the night. Thank you, Krimson. Thank you, everybody, for being here. And this was a great one. So just to reflect, the first episode was Drew on ceremonial magic. The second episode was Rafi doing DMT live on the video, which was pretty cool. And then we had Krimson today, and we have Lava tomorrow. So thank you, guys, and God bless. Let's jump up to the other room.
God bless.